Hey everyone, John here. Welcome back to this tutorial series. In tutorial 1, we were working in Illustrator, looking at how to take text and modify it to create the electric state logo, and also to save that as an SVG in order to be able to bring that into Blender, which is what we're going to do in this tutorial. And we're going to extrude it, add a bevel, and also do some custom modeling to get the logo looking just right. So let's get into it. Alright, so here in Blender 4.2, I've got a new scene, but if you need to make a new one, just choose File, New, General. And we're going to delete Camera, Cube, and the light. Come up to the File menu and choose Import, Scalable Vector Graphic.svg. Just navigate to where you saved yours. Mine's number 2. And if I just roll my mouse wheel, you can see it's tiny. Now, we will put it into the center of the scene. We'll just make some modifications first. We've got a small the and electric and state are both basically the same size, so we need to give these different kinds of bevels. So as you can see, as I click on each of the letters, they're all individual curves, and you may prefer to keep them as individual curves, but overall it increases the workload quite a lot because we have to set the settings for each of these individual elements individually. So I'm going to select all of those, right click and choose join. Okay, that's going to be my electric state. And of course this one is a single spline or a single curve. I'm still talking in Cinema 4D terms here. And I'll name this the. All right, so I'll just do a quick save. I'm going to name my electric state 2 because I did a bit of testing before. All right, so before we do anything else, let's just get rid of the material. Let's come in with the SVG. So I'll just come over to the material tab here and just hit the minus key. Same for here, minus. Just makes it a little easier to see. And if we look at the wireframe, my keyboard shortcut is Shift Space. You can see it's pretty messy. Now in the past I've done tutorials where I've shown how to model text using quad topology, and that's very flexible and it looks great, but it takes ages. So this time we're not going to use any quads. It's all going to be really dodgy looking triangles and terrible n-gons, but we're going to work around that, okay? It's going to be a lot faster and it's going to be all we need for this. All right, so let's move the origin, because the origin at the moment is at world center and this is offset from the origin. So what we can do is you could right click and you could choose set origin and choose origin to center of mass. There we go. So now we've got one in the middle of the and one in the middle of there. So we can just grab this, or we could just press Alt G and that will take it back to home. But see how it's done the? So we don't want to do that. So what we just grab this on the Z and then just, get it fairly close. I think that's okay. Right, so now we're right in the middle of the world and looking good. So what we're going to do here is we're going to extrude using the splines. We're going to create the bevels using the splines. Then we're going to get that as close as we can topology-wise, nice and, as clean topology-wise. And then we're going to have to convert it to geometry, to a mesh, and just do some fine-tuning. So we'll do the electric state first. Let's come down and click on the Data tab. And let's take a look. I'm going to create the main bevel part separately because you can see the yellow part is inset. And I wasn't able to work out a way to create this with one layer, so I'm going to use 2 layers. So what we'll do first of all is we'll press Shift D, and that duplicates that. Let's name this one bevel, and let's name this one, just by double clicking, we'll name this one, I don't know, inner, something like that. And we'll turn this one off, and we'll just work with the bevel. So I'm going to press Shift Space again just to hide my wireframe. And let's take a look here. Now under geometry, we can extrude this. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just extrude that up a little bit. Very nice. And going to add a bevel. So under bevel, let's use round first of all. Once again, holding down Shift. If I don't hold down Shift, it's gonna do that. It's going to be very hard to control. So what I need to do is just hold down Shift. Let's come back to that, and probably a bevel of 0.1. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, the bevel is offset from the electric state inner. So I think the best way to create that is just to come up to the top and under fill mode, change it to none. Aha. So now we've got that bevel one. And if we turn the other one back on, there we go. We grab the other one, just bring it forward a bit. And now we've got that kind of look, which is pretty good. I think that's a really legitimate way to create that kind of bevel. So let's take a look at the quality of this. So there's some problems going down there. You've got a lot of, space between the loops, the loops here, based on where the points were in Illustrator, and also where, obviously where the points are on the path in Blender. And it's trying to interpolate. It's having some problems in these corners. This one's a real problem. We'll take a look at that in a sec. Probably one of the first ones we'll address. So overall, it's done a pretty good job, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And we want to try and do most of that work when we're working with splines because it's a little faster. But some of it we'll have to do to the actual geometry. Now, if we say select, this spline here, and I'm just hitting the tab key to go back between object mode. Select that and come down to the bottom here under active spline. You can see resolution's set to 12. If I decrease that, see, I can go right down to something like that. Now, the reason I'm showing you that is because let's come right in and take a look at this part here. These are the areas where you're going to have problems. And if I decrease it right down, that problem goes away. But it gives us another problem, right? It makes it all faceted. And that's fine if you're only going to look at the logo from far away. That's fine, but we're not going to do that. And we can't put this into a subdivision surface modifier because we're not going to be doing control cuts. And we're not going to be doing control cuts and sharpening cuts because we're not working with quads. And if we start putting control loops in on this, it's going to be an absolute mess. So we need to find a sweet spot with the resolution that gives us minimal errors, but also is enough for us to get close enough to make it not look faceted, okay? And I'm actually going to go right up to 12 because I'm confident enough that I can clean this up with this at 12. And then I can get nice and close. And that's close enough. It starts to break down as you get really close, but we're only ever going to be about that close to it. You could go probably to 10, but I think 12 is pretty good. Now, there is a problem there, and I think I know what that problem is with this one. So let me just see if I can select this one. And you can see that's definitely a problem there. But if I just move it away, there's actually two vertices there. So that's what's probably causing that. So if I right click and right down the bottom here, if I choose delete point, ta-da, that fixed that. So that was a super easy fix. That's why it's important to get the spline correct in Illustrator, because if you've got too many points around, remember we cleaned up a few points. If there's too many points and points close together, it just makes it harder in here. Although you can clean up in here as well. You can come up and use the tweak mode, and you can select the handles, and you can adjust the handles as well. If it's not looking straight, I think that's fairly straight. So that's pretty good. So I'm looking for errors. There's problems with areas like this. Now, also notice how we've got all of these bunched loops here, and they're more spaced out here. Watch what happens when I take that vert and just drag it. See how they spread out? So it's basically, it's based on, you can see the length of the handle. See how that handle is quite short and that one's quite long? If I was to take that handle and drag it out, see how I can sort of space them out? And if I take that, I can start to adjust it to do that kind of thing. So I can do that, but the downside of that is that, I'm just undoing here, it starts to change the shape and it's very difficult to maintain the shape. So we're actually going to adjust it at the mesh level, okay? So we'll leave all that. That's all pretty good. You can see here there's a problem here. Let's just grab this. The handle basically is completely at 0 there and it's pulled out there. We can't mess up that. If I select that and right click and choose something like automatic, there we go. And you can see that's fixed that. Now if I grab the tweak again, I can sort of clean that up. But once again, what I'm doing there is I'm changing the curvature of it. So I don't really want to do that. So we're going to fix all of this up at the mesh level. Same over here. So we'll have another look through it in a moment when we've converted it. Just looking around here, there's a problem there. You know, once again, we don't want to do that because we're going to start messing up. This one could be a little bit fiddly to fix. But trust me, it would be easier to do it this way than to model this all to quads. All right, now that we've talked about the bevel, I actually am thinking that I'm going to use a custom bevel for this. You could definitely go ahead and use this if you wanted to, if you like the rounded bevel. If we look at the original logo again, it's actually rounded on the outside and flat on the inside. Not that easy to see on this image, but I really like that look. So that's the look I want to go for. In order to be able to do that, we have to use the object bevel. And we have to create an object. So let's do that first. Now I'm holding down the Alt key and middle mouse button just to snap into my different views. You can see I'm in top orthographic here. And what we'll do is we'll press Shift A, curve. Now you may need to turn on your extra 3D objects in your add-ons if you don't see this sector. And these are the settings we're going to use. So an end angle of 90, and you should be, actually I've been playing with the settings here, but you should be on Bezier. Okay, you can see that's very high. You probably have a default of 3 there if you haven't been adjusting the settings. It's very high. I might drop that down to 1, and we might have to drop that down a little bit later as well. And overall, I think that's fine. So I'm going to go with that. It's way too big, so I just hit S, scale that right down. And it's got to be small because it's going to go as the bevel, and if it's too big, it's going to just blow it right out. So we'll just bring it over here where we can see it. Select this, make sure you get the right one. And come down and choose bevel object. Use the ink dropper and just select that. Aha. Now it's reversed, which is actually quite a nice look. It's rounded on the inside and sharp on the outside. But we don't want that. We want it to be the other way. So what we can do is just scale that zoop, like that, and just make that -1. There we go. It's still fairly high resolution. It's quite big. Let's take a quick look here. I think there's a bit of overlap going on. Yeah, too big, too thick, way too thick there. So why don't we, this is probably going to be the area that's going to be the closest. So let's grab it, bring it down where we can see both, and then just hit S and just scale that down until we're not touching anymore. Got a few errors here and there, but that looks pretty good. Now, if you come to a side profile, you could adjust this because it's live, remember? So you could hit the Y here, grab the Y, and then just you could flatten it out like that. You could extend it. It's pretty flexible. That's a nice look. So how's this looking geometry-wise? It's very high. So even though we didn't adjust that, we got it as far as we could with the Bezier inside the curve settings. Because it's a curve and a Bezier curve, what we can do is we can adjust the resolution. So if we come up to the top here and just drop that down, see, we can just dial that in. We don't want to go too far because we'll get faceting. Remember, we're not putting this in a subdivision surface modifier. So I would probably sort of err on the slightly higher side. I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to dial it back in. That's selected. Just bring that down to about, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6. I'll just go half like that. Okay. So that's pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll convert this to geometry. Before we do that though, I'm going to just select it and I'm going to press Shift D and I'll just make a new collection and call this spares. I'm going to take that and just put it in my spares and just turn that off. Just in case, okay? So now I can right click and choose Convert to Mesh. And now we have geometry. Okay, before we start cleaning this up, let's just do a little bit of cleanup here. So I'll take my sector and just drag it into spares. That's probably all we need to do. Maybe just delete that collection. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of this, then I'm going to pause the recording and go ahead and do the rest. And you, just as long as I show you, the approach, then you can go and do it yourself. What we'll do first of all is get rid of the back face. We don't need a back face in any of these. And I might just right click and choose Shade Auto Smooth just to get that a little cleaner with the shading. I'm going to hit 3 to go into face mode and just going to select that loop. I was just holding down Control and Alt and I'm going to delete. Okay, so we will have to extrude this. We can extrude that later. I'm just going to do this first, I think. Just going to go through and just select all of these. I can do a few at a time. Grab those and delete. You don't want to be having faces on your model that you're not going to see in the final. Okay, get rid of those faces. And is there any more? All right, so now we'll come back and we'll take a look at each of the letters. Maybe start with the E. The E looks pretty good, doesn't it? We'll just turn this one off. Turn off inner. Just looking for any errors. Might just bring up the smoothing a little bit. It's looking okay, the E. All right, so the L should be okay as well. That E is fine. And just if that E wasn't fine and that one was, I'd probably just delete that one and duplicate that one. Okay, let's look at the C. You've got a situation where these aren't particularly even. I mean, you could go into edge mode and select the loops like that sort of thing. And if you have loop tools turned on in your add-ons, under edit loop tools, you could just space those out, get them a little more even. You could go ahead and do that. I'm just going to just do this one just as an example. Go all the way across and just space like that. You know, you've got a situation where these are, you know, further apart and these are tighter because this is a corner, but this doesn't make a lot of difference because you're not, you know, using a subdivision surface modifier. What I'm really looking for is a situation where I've got errors with the geometry and it's looking pretty good, that one. How's that looking? So obviously there's a big problem over here. We'll hit that in a sec. This one could probably go, Control X. And maybe I could, don't have to do this, but I could just select these and this one and then just space these out. Make a big difference. There's one in the corner there. So we could probably get rid of that one. See how that cleaned that up? That's all that has to be done for that one. This one is a big mess. So what might make this a bit easier is if we hide a few things that we don't want to affect. So in face mode, just coming and hiding these. Let's see here. We don't want to affect these. So just hiding. And probably this one and this one. Hide this one for now. So this one here, not these. I'm going to grab my select circle. And probably this one here can go. So delete faces. And go up and start removing some of these. And that one can probably go. Maybe you can keep that one. Now we probably can also get rid of a few loops. It's going to change the curvature a little bit, but I think that's okay. So get rid of that. See, that's actually a little cleaner now. We'll sort those ones out in a minute. Right. I'm going to bring everything back, Alt-H. Make sure I know what I'm looking at here. So this has got to go. And this one too. Definitely a little better now, because these are going to have to be slid back. I think we can probably just join one more. So what I'll do is get rid of maybe, I'll leave that one. Come into here and just slide a few of these back. So we've got that one and that one. So we can probably grab those and just go M and join at center. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. And the idea will be to, you know, join these up together. And clean up any of the mess that's in there. Now these loops need to be, probably need to add this one back in. Use the F2 add-on to do that. Just slide this back in line with that. Got this crazy one in here too. This one would be slid back in line with that one there, because these will all be welded together. Select those, ML to merge to last. And basically it's going to keep sliding things around. Put it back in line. Trying to keep it as simple as possible. So these ones would have to all be merged. Bring that in. Extra one there. See, I don't want to do that because I'm going to mess up that. Once I get this little area fixed, I think we'll be all right. Might just delete those. It's better. Now I can see what I'm doing. This is why I was trying to avoid most of this kind of stuff, but it's very difficult to avoid. If we slide just one back, we can probably snap the other one into place. Back around the top. Okay, so we've got these two. So if we go merge at center, and this one can probably go. We'll go X, dissolve vertices. There we go. See, it's looking a lot cleaner now. And there's a few ways we can do this. Just select them in X-ray mode, M, merge at center. Got this one here. Bring it back into line. You can probably just snap it in with that one. So grab that one as last and go ML. Same here, ML. Look how clean that is now. That's great. We've got that one there. This is going to be a little fiddly here. Maybe we could, let's see, what's the best way to do this? Slide that one in and ML. Slide that one in, ML. They're all connected. That can go. That one can't go. I have to slide that back in. Maybe just do an ML there as well. And just do these ones as well. Maybe that one can go. So what have we got down here? Probably here it'd be a good idea just to grab the knife tool and then just take this down to here like this. and like that, and just take this one in edge mode and just come in a little closer and dissolve those, and just sort of slide these across. Or something like that. So we've managed to keep the curvature pretty well. And it's going to be much easier to work with, because we should be able to go into edge mode and just, there you go, Alt click and select that loop. So now when we extrude that on the Z, it's come straight back like that. Much cleaner. It's pretty easy, pretty quick to do this kind of thing. Just selecting the loop and control X to remove it. So this is definitely a problem here. There's too many loops in there. That one's probably okay. Maybe we can get rid of that one and that one. It's a little bit easier to do this than as if we were doing it with a spline. You saw we were having some problems with the spline. We select a few of these and just space those out. A little bit of a bump in there. Got to be really careful. It's okay. And it's fairly tight there, but looks okay. You've got all these little extra loops in here. You could probably get rid of a few of those. Maybe keep the first one, get rid of a bunch of these. Keep the last one. See, it held everything there, but just got rid of that bunch. There are some problems in some of the corners. This can mainly just be fixed by just sliding these points back. That kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and just double check this and I'll be back in a moment. We can probably actually just dissolve that one and it fixes that. Just going to bring up the auto smooth to 90. That's good. So go ahead, look around the model and just double check that everything's looking clean, and I'll see you back here in a moment. All right, so just one thing I want to do with you here is just change this by selecting this loop and Control B to bevel and just beveling that. Just going to roll the mouse wheel. I already had it on one there. I'm just going to roll it back just to give me the extra loop and just to push those apart. And I think that just helps define that a little better and also cleans it up a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to put the extrusion on the back. It's got this kind of stacked extrusion. So there's the bevel one, and then there's three behind. Okay, so we'll create that now. And just thinking, we probably want to apply the scale as well. If we select this and have a look at our item, you can see the scale is at 11. All right, so I might just select that one too and just press Control A and apply all. Now it didn't apply it to the inner because the inner is a curve. So I just got that error message there. So with the inner, just need to right click and choose Convert to Mesh. And try that again. Control A, apply all. Okay, so now we have a scale of 111 and we're good to go. This one we want to leave as a curve because it hasn't had the extrusion yet. So now we're ready to do the extrusion. So I'm going to select my bevel and hit tab, go into edit mode and just select these outer loops. We're going to do these all at once, okay? You've got to make sure you get just the outer loops. Okay, so I think that's good. Just going to do another quick check. And we've got this one down here as well. Can easily check that by looking at it from side view and in X-ray. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put 3 insets in here. So we're going to do the extrusions really quickly by pressing E and Z. I'm going to come up to about there, I think. And then we're going to come up, and you can use this keyboard shortcut as well. You can choose Edit, Repeat Last. So Shift R, 1, that's the first inset. 2, that's the second inset. Third inset, and there's the last one. So if I go into face mode, 1, 2, 3, they're the insets, and they're all even. We've got them all done at the same time. Now, unfortunately, we can't select all of these loops at the same time, so we have to go around the model and select all of these. Okay, so I'm almost there. Don't forget the inside of the A as well. I think that's got them all. So now we need to extrude. And for this one, we're going to press Alt-E. We're going to extrude along the normals. I'm just going to extrude inwards. Probably to about, I don't know, 3.7. I think that's what I was doing in my tests. Now, you can see it's a little bit bent there, so we're just going to choose Offset Even, and that fixes that. I think it's going to be pretty good all the way around. Okay, so we can deselect. And there we go, that's the stacked extrusion. One thing I would like to do is put a little micro bevel on this. And again, there's no super fast way to do it. We could use a bevel modifier, but you've still got to create a selection to control the bevel modifier. We could come up and choose, make sure we're in edge mode, and choose select sharp edges and adjust the sharpness to try and zero in on only the edges we want. But invariably when you do this, you're going to get edges you don't want. You're going to do the extrusion and you're going to have to undo and do it again. So I actually think it's a better way to just do each one at a time, just selecting the loops that you want. And I only want to do the outer loops. Like that. We don't even have to do these ones on the inside. You could, if you wanted to, you could grab these ones as well. Like that, and also like this one, but not grabbing these ones on the inside, and definitely not grabbing the ones on the outside here. So once you have that, let's make sure I've got that one there. It's a little bit easier to control when you're doing these manually, because you're not selecting automatically things you don't want and then having to deselect. So now if I go Control B and put a little teeny bevel on there, something like that. It's just going to be just enough to pick up the light. You can see it there. It makes a big difference when you've got your texturing in place, especially when you're working with metals. So you can see it quite clearly there. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these. You'll also need to, as will I, do the And this is easy because I've already shown you all the techniques, but for this one you're going to use round for the bevel. So very simple to do that. Just remember to, convert it to geometry. And in the next tutorial, what we'll do is we'll create those little electric clips that are clipped to the text and look at how to create splines to connect those little clips. So go ahead and do that, and I'll look forward to meeting you again in the next tutorial.